On today's show, another disgraceful performance by the Capitals in Game 4 as they face elimination Thursday night.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme. I've covered the Capitals for the last 3 seasons for Locked On and various other outlets before that. I'm also the host of the weekly show called The Capitals Minutecast, available wherever you find your podcasts. And as always, I want to thank you for making this your first listen of the day. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about the last stand at Cap 1. Yes, we're at this point of the postseason. We're talking round 2 hockey, and the Capitals must win Thursday night in game number 5, or it is over. Everything that we've heard about this team's going into game number 4 is there's no fear in this locker room, that we know how to win in these kind of situations. Well, the Capitals are facing elimination in game number 5 Thursday night. You scared yet? I'll talk about that a bit later. I'll talk about the power play disgrace and panic passing. Now, this team plays well when they adhere to the script that Spencer Carberry and his assistants have laid out before them. But when they struggle is when they go into this fight or flight phase, when the opposition is really coming at them hard. How do the Capitals overcome? But just to get it going here, I'm talking about false confidence and a familiar collapse. And that is how I'm going to start, as I was feeling oddly optimistic going into this game, as you know, the players in the locker room said the right thing. Tom Wilson, Chychrun, these kind of guys. There's no fear amongst us guys. We know how to win in these kind of games, blah, blah, blah. It's all lip service. I don't believe it. And I hate to be the guy, but I have a hard time believing that the Capitals can somehow rally and find a way to win this series. How are they going to unlock that safe or solve that Rubik's Cube, something that has eluded them in this second round? They won 1 game, and did they get lucky in that game? I think what the Capitals really need to do is pour over that footage, figure out what got you success in that game, and build on that. Now, that might be an overly simplistic way of looking at things, but what are the Carolina Hurricanes doing that the Capitals cannot overcome? It's hockey at the end of the day, and there is some bright hockey minds in there, but some of the biggest players have not really stood out and performed. Alex Ovechkin gets the goal tonight, but in the last episode, some people kind of criticized that I mentioned that it was some of the marquee names. But to be clear here, Pierre-Luc Dubois, some of these other players, it's not just Ovechkin. There's a lot of players on this team that aren't chipping in. Players throughout the season that were the key contributors are not kicking in. And what is it all about? Logan Thompson doesn't even seem like Logan Thompson. So what do the Capitals have to do to somehow, some way, pick up a big win in game number 5? And even if the Capitals can win game 5, somehow, some way, do they have what it takes to turn the ship around and win this series? That's what I'll talk about a little bit later. But just to get it going here, I'm talking about the false confidence and familiar collapse. And let's be honest, the team talked like they were ready. The players, Chychrun, Wilson, getting us all pumped up like we got this. But the actions told a different story. All we heard after game 3 was, quote, "We're not panicking," quote, "We're resilient, and our best hockey is coming." Yeah, and put that on the back of a t-shirt or maybe a billboard. I don't believe what you're telling me. But what we got in game 4 was a team that looked overwhelmed, outpaced, and downright jittery. And, that's the hard part. And I knew going into this series that the Hurricanes were going to be a tough team. But what did some kind of the outsiders that, this team lacks star power? They don't got a really big star. There is a lot of players that know how to play some great hockey with Carolina. I'm here to tell you, and a lot of that is due in part to Rod Brindamore and his style of play, pushing the buttons, pulling the strings, getting the most out of his players. This wasn't about bad luck or just running into a hot goalie tonight. This was about failing to respond when the moment demanded something more. And, even though we were told all those things, that we're not panicking, we're resilient, and our best hockey is coming. If that's your best hockey, I don't want to see your worst, as it was disgusting tonight. And there were rays of hope. Chychrun, Ovechkin, can they find a way to rally? It wasn't the case. Carolina didn't score, at certain points. The Capitals found a way to shut them down here or there, but the Capitals need to find a way to stymie them in a bigger picture. The Capitals opened the game decently again, but the shift that changed everything came around the 8-minute mark. Sebastian Aho's line hemmed them in. The Capitals couldn't clear the zone to save their lives, and the floodgates opened from there. And it's one of the things, and it's been a change in the postseason. The Capitals found a way to overcome. And if you are an everydayer of the show, I've spoke of resiliency and tenacity, that the Capitals this year are different. They're not that turtle that recedes into its shell when things go poorly. But I'm here to tell you that head is almost completely in their shell, saying, just tell me when the playoffs are over so I can start playing some hockey, or some golf, if you will. That's what has me concerned. Carolina didn't score on that shift, but they did take over the game. That was the Capitals when they flinched, and Carolina smelled blood. 2 minutes later, Shane Gostisbehere opens the scoring. And this team, and oftentimes people say, well, you can't quantify crowd noise playing at home. It doesn't play into hockey. It does. That once the Carolina Hurricanes scored a goal and that place was buzzing, they fed on it. So it is a difficult thing. And if you want to take a look at kind of more of a granular level, shots on goal, 37 Carolina versus the Capitals 21. The power play, the Carolina Hurricanes did not make good on the power play. The Capitals went 1 for 5. They still found a way to lose the game. Carolina 37 hits versus the Capitals 39. That if you look at some of the markers, you would think to yourself, the Capitals did at least some things right to win this game. But that's where analytics go wrong. If you're just looking at the back of a hockey card or some advanced metric website out there, that's when it can lead you astray. The Capitals are struggling in this series, and it's not just a one thing here or one thing there. This team is failing on a broad spectrum level. And the thing of it is, the hard part as a Capitals fan is, do they have what it takes to overcome? What we saw tonight was a team that lacked confidence. It was a team that I think, put on the strong face of saying, we got what it takes to win, but they know that they don't. And that's the hard part. And that's the hard part for Spencer Carberry, is he worked so diligently to put this team where it's at right now. And on paper, it seemed like a slam dunk, the additions, how well they did in the standings, and, Alex Ovechkin, that the vibes, the bands that make them dance, and all the shenanigans in the tunnel, that it seemed like this team was the making of a Cinderella story, a Disney movie, if you will. But this Disney movie is going to end in a horror show if the Capitals cannot find a way to turn it around. So that's the difficult part. You take a look at the game tonight, it was kind of what we saw earlier in the series, that the Capitals, when they face opposition, don't know how to batten down the hatches. They have not found a way to deploy appropriate countermeasures to what the Carolina Hurricanes are doing. And because of that, they're in a deep hole. And it's going to be very difficult for this team to try to dig their way out. Is it impossible? No. If you can harken back to the 2018 Stanley Cup season, that team faced a lot of adversity in the playoffs as well. Different roster, different time. Did the Capitals have what it takes? You take a look at it tonight, it was especially difficult. So the biggest takeaways here, the Capitals say the right things, but the on-ice execution is nowhere near playoff caliber. And it makes you wonder that even if the Capitals could somehow, some way, catch lightning in a bottle and win this series, what would it mean for them next? You don't get lucky when you get to this level of the playoffs. Your weaknesses will be exposed. I think the Capitals, to a certain extent, got lucky in the first round, and they got away with it because they had the better players and that kind of thing. But when it came to facing truly a tough opponent, that's where they struggled. And that's why the Capitals are in the position that they're in. The other takeaway, momentum matters, and the Capitals can survive momentum swings like that and expect to win. You take a look at it, the team was riding a high after picking up a win, but has struggled ever since. And the final takeaway in this segment is Game 5 is do or die. The learning curve is over. The time for excuses is over. It's this or that, a couple bad bounces here or there. And Spencer Carberry said, we're trying to do the right things. And there's no fear in this locker room. I'm here to tell you, Capitals players and fans, you better be scared, because this Cinderella story is about to come to an end unless they can turn it around. All right, so coming up here after the break, we'll talk about power play disgrace and panic passing. What got the Capitals in this position in the first place? I'll discuss straight ahead. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help you keep feeling fuller longer. Now, personally, I love the no shells variety. It's the perfect grab and go snack for busy days. Whether I'm snacking at my desk, on a road trip, or just need a quick protein boost, they're always my go-to snack. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite. So get snacking and get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So going over the Game 4 disgrace. I hate doing these shows for you guys. It's a bummer. And I would love nothing more than to talk to you about a big Capitals win, but that's what these shows are about. It's about therapy, venting out what we think is wrong with our favorite team. At the end of the day, we still love the team. We still root for the team, but we know that it's struggling. So in the second segment here, let's dive into the power play where it struggled and the panic passing that we saw out on the ice here. So let's call it what it is. The power play is an embarrassment. You get 4-minute double minor in the middle of the first period, down 1, and your season is basically hanging in the balance, and you muster 1 shot. And it's one of the things that I've spoke about all season long, that special teams comes into focus. And if you listen to this show on a regular basis, I've spoke about this, since camp last fall, that, you can get away with special teams trouble in preseason or start to season, but the later in the season and the postseason in this example, it really comes into focus. And that was true for the Capitals as they mustered 1 shot. Makes you wonder how they would have done if they were able to convert. Now, 1 singular shot. Can you believe it? Carolina had more danger shorthanded than the Capitals did with the man advantage. Where's the urgency? Where's the basic structure? Where is the fight? The Capitals are up against it, but you would have no idea if you went out and looked at the ice. Where is Tom Wilson? Where is the rage in Tom Wilson that we're waiting for? And I think that they've just been beat over the head, that you don't want to take any stupid penalties, but we need to see some fight, that this team cares, or it's going to be over. And do they want it to be over? I really don't think it's the case. It's just, I don't know. I don't think they know how to get themselves out of the mess that they're in. Seth Jarvis made it 2-0 off a greasy rebound just a minute into the second. And that is when the wheel was really a wobbling. And guess what? That's playoff hockey. That's how you score when the goalie's in the zone. Not trying to skate in 5 passes across the blue line, not looking for a perfect OV one-timer. That is where they struggled. Now, even when the Capitals finally broke through with Ovi blasting home on a 5-on-3, it was too little too late. It's like the team only wakes up when the game is slipping away. Like it's the third period, guys. We really just need to give it a valiant effort. If they put forth that valiant effort to start the game, I'd be talking to you about more wins. But this team, I just don't think has what it takes. Now, listen, the Capitals have struggled against the Hurricanes since they played him in this season. You take a look at it, there has been no easy games against Carolina. And this team, to give credit where credit's due, Carolina, they play a really good style of hockey. But, that's the thing is that the Capitals, I'm glad that they try to pour it on in the third period. But when you take a look at it, it was the Chychrun goal, which led to some momentum. It was the Ovechkin goal. They didn't continue with that momentum. The momentum in those moments was in the Capitals' favor. You even heard the broadcasters talking about it, that it seemed shifting in the Capitals' direction, but then it was vacuumed out in a hurry with, a coughed up puck or, a breakaway by the Carolina Hurricanes, that the Capitals have had a difficult time trying to batten down the hatches and try to win these games. That's going to be the difficult part for the Capitals in game number 5. I mean, I know what I'm going to hear. I didn't get a chance to check out any of the post-game pressers yet, but I know that that's what we're going to hear. You're going to see disappointment from Spencer Carbery. You're going to, hear some disappointment from some of the players in the locker room, but at the end of the day, they're still going to say they're not scared, that we got what it takes. And, that is that optimism that I just can't buy into. That is more than glass half full versus glass half empty. That is glass 3/4 full and delusional city. I think for a lot of these players. And that's the hard part, is understanding, are they so caught up in their own hype that they don't understand what's going on? Do they understand the gravity of the situation, that they must win in this game number 5? It's the power play, it's the disgrace, it's the panic passing, that it just looked disjointed. In this team, other than the Chychrun goal and the Ovechkin goal, there was no point in this game other than that brief window that I thought maybe somehow the Capitals would find a way to work their way back into the game. They just didn't have what it takes. So the biggest takeaways in this segment is the power play is costing this team the series, period. And it's too little. It's not something that they're going to be able to work on right now. I mean, we're well past that. They had the preseason, they had the regular season to try to take care of this, and they're not able to get it done. Andersen isn't invincible, but the Capitals make him look like it with perimeter play and lack of traffic. They need to drive the net. They need to find a way to do what got them successful earlier in the season. Connor McMichael, Mr. Greasy Goal 100. That's what he would always do. Drive for the net, get that greasy goal, look for a second opportunity, third opportunity, deflection, rebound, whatever the case was. We're not seeing that same hunger that we saw from the Capitals earlier in the season. I don't know what it is. I know that it makes it difficult because Carolina is really, really good. But with that said, you're in the playoffs and you knew you were going to be playing a really, really great team. The third takeaway is, if you can't win the special teams battle, you're not winning in the postseason. And that's the part that has me the most concerned. And I'm almost, in a lot of ways, resigned to the fact that it probably will be over in game 5. And I know never to doubt this team. And I would love more than anything to be wrong. Don't get me wrong here, but it's just the way this team's playing, that there is not that same bounce back, that same push, that same hunger that we saw from this team during the regular season. That is the thing that has me the most concerned. And one of the biggest reasons why I think that this Capitals team, their season and everything that they've accomplished, players putting up career numbers, Alex Ovechkin catching and passing, Wayne Gretzky, that will be all forgotten when the Capitals get eliminated in the second round. All right, coming up here after the break, I'll talk about last stand at Capital One. If there was a chance for the Capitals to dig deep, Game 5, Thursday night, the Capitals better be prepared to bring it. I'll discuss straight ahead. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. So, last stand, Game 5, Thursday night at Cap One. What needs to change? We're hoping that the Capitals can hit the ground running, that they can get the lead and maintain the lead and a couple goal lead in the first period to tilt the ice in their favor. Thursday night is it. Game 5 at home, season on the line. You're either fight or you fold. And this group has said it all year. They're built to fight. I want to see it. I want to see evidence of it. But fight doesn't just mean grit. It means cleaner puck movement, better decisions under pressure, and no more panic passing in the neutral zone. That is what the Carolina Hurricanes are scooping up and finding the back of the net. Whether it's slick passing or breakaways, they just sense the weakness in the Capitals' armor. They sense the blood in the water that this team is struggling, and they know what's at stake. Trust me, Carolina knows what's at stake Thursday night as well. Logan Thompson has been fine. Not the issue. He's getting hung out by turnovers, bad clears, and poor tracking in transition. The defense, way too reactive. Carolina's forecheck is elite. Yes, the Capitals' D's core is handling them with grade A chances on a silver platter. Chychrun's goal was smart. Ovi's one-timer was vintage, but they need more. It's not just those small windows of success. They need more. And when I say Logan Thompson has been fine, I mean, fine. I guess he hasn't been Vezina quality, if you know what I mean. He has not been premier quality. He's been good in certain situations, but there's also been times that I think that he has been not totally dialed in either. In a lot of ways, what we see in Logan Thompson is evident across the entire team, that sometimes the play is good. It's not great, but if you're going to win postseason hockey, especially in the second round, you've got to play on another level. So you want to win Game 5, start dictating the game. Take hits to make plays. Match Carolina's pace for 60 minutes, not 10. Everyone on that bench needs to empty the tank on Thursday. And it'll be interesting to see what the Capitals ultimately do in game number 5. That, like I say, that's the thing. Even if they find a way to win game number 5 and the series is extended, do they have what it takes to duplicate that and find a way to win the series? Not just duplicate, they'll have to finish out the series and win victorious, because we know what's at stake. You lose this series and it's over. There's no consolation prize. There's no like do-overs. You had your opportunity. So that is where the Capitals are at right now, up against a wall. And like I say, that's the hardest part for me, is that when you take a look at this team and how it was built and what happened, that say for some reason the Capitals are eliminated on Thursday, what changes need to be made? And how would you know what changes need to be made? That's the biggest thing, that this team excelled so much during the regular season that they fell flat in the postseason, that you would never know. They won the Metro. They won the Eastern Conference. That if you're going to make changes, what changes would those be? And the way you got to look at it is you have to build a team that is not just good, great, or excellent is what the Capitals have to do. And that is what they're going to have to hope that the players that they did go out and acquire in the offseason, the Pierre-Luc Dubois, the Chychrun, the Logan Thompson, Duhaime, these kind of guys, the players that got him in this position right now, those are the players that are going to need to shine, and they're really going to have to step up in game number 5. They understand Pierre-Luc Dubois. He's been there. He's done that. And if there's a guy out there that you really think wants to prove something, it's Pierre-Luc Dubois, a reclamation project to go into this season, and has done great things for the Capitals, has been pretty much non-existent through this playoff series. That's what we need to see more of. Chychrun as well. He scored a goal tonight, but broad brush in this second round, he has not stepped up. John Carlson, as I've talked about as well, these players that have been key contributors for the Capitals all season long, even in the first round, have either been absent or not living up to expectation. That is what has me concerned about this team, and a bit of a question mark that this team that's primarily veteran laden, sprinkled in with some young talent, have faced tough opponents like this. Why can they not overcome? Biggest takeaways of this third segment here: no more excuses. Game 5 has to be the Capitals' best game of the year. And again, if Carolina they jump on top and get a couple goal lead to start this game, it's over. In a lot of ways, you could turn the game off probably at the end of the first period. I hate to say that, but that's just the way it seems like it's going in this series. Offensive pressure must be sustained. The start can't be the peak. And the team's character gets tested now. All 4 line, all 6D, everybody. I want the best guys out on the ice. And it's a difficult thing because, for Spencer Carberry, he's thinking to himself, he's probably so rattled right now. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Because, you can't be too experimental in a game that if you don't win, it's over. That it is trying to make tactful decisions by not trying to go do too crazy things. That it's a very difficult position that the Capitals find themselves in. At the end of the day, what it is, to make it very simplistic for you, this team, this roster, as is, was the team that got the Capitals in this position that they're in right now. There's no silver bullet. There's no guy on the bench that's going to come in there. I've heard everything more. Where's Ethan Frank and Ethan Bear? Really? You want to go for a wild card? You want to go for a Hail Mary pass in game number 5? No. This team, for the most part, that what we see out on the ice right now is the team that got him into this position. Those same players need to dig deep, understand the gravity of the situation. It's game 5, winner take all, or it is over. I hope the Capitals players understand, the fans, I'm a fan at the end of the day, that there was a feeling of hope, excitement surrounding this team, that this year's team is going to be different. I still adhere to my same statement that it is Stanley Cup final or bust for me with this team. Is it an improvement making it to the second round over last year, making it to the second round for the first time since 2018? Yeah, if that's how low you want to set the bar. But the Capitals, and everything that surrounded them, all the accolades, all the accomplishments, second round losers. I don't want the Capitals to go down like that. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Capitals. And I want to thank all of you that listen on the audio side and watch this on YouTube. You are what makes this show successful. When you're done here, head on over to Locked On NHL's 24-hour channel, available wherever you find your podcasts and on YouTube. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It is your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.